Gaming NBS episode 125. Welcome to Gaming NBS, a tabletop RPG podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
I'm Brett. Welcome to the show. Welcome back, folks. Glad to have you with us. You know what, Sean? So I'm just going to go right into it. I saw Rogue One.
What?
God, I'm a dick. But then again, maybe I'm lying because I'm really good at that.
Right. Yeah. God.
Oh, just bleep it out. It'll be fine. Anyway, let's move on before I create greater drama.
Yeah, we should make an announcement. There's a new podcast in town, I heard.
Oh, yeah. Some dude, hobby man or something.
Some patron of ours or something. He gives us money every once in a while. You know, I think we've inspired more podcasts. I won't say we, but it's funny. I think sometimes people listen to us and go, God damn, if those guys can get on the mic and talk about dumb shit, I know I can do it.
Yeah, we're kind of the living example of, hey, if they can do it, anybody can. Yes. But I'll tell you what. So it's Mr. Hobbs. Mr. Hobbs is one of the patrons of the show, a great all-around gamer, great guy. Had a chance to meet Mr. Hobbs at the Gamehole Con this last November. When Sean and I are at Gary Con this upcoming March, we'll be happy to swig a beer with Mr. Hobbs and congratulate him on his newfound success because it sounded pretty damn good.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Hobbs and Friends of the OSR, where we talk about OSR games and the games that we've played this week. I'm Jason Hobbs, and this week I'm chatting with Eric Hoffman, one of the duo of the Stormlord Publishing. Hey Eric, what's going on?
Hey Hobbs, what's happening?
It's early in the morning, and this is our first episode, so who knows?
It's going to be great.
Who knows indeed.
And I guess, what was the inspiration?
It was good. Hobbs gave me, as I said last time, I kind of gave him, in the spirit of Brett spoiling the fun for everybody, I mentioned that it was coming out, and I got a little taste of it ahead of time, so it was good. And I'm glad to see it out there, and also the positive feedback that he's getting. So I said this to Sean, and I've said this to Mr. Jason Hobbs, I believe, as well. But his approach to the OSR, when I spoke to him at Gamehole Con, what I heard in the first episode, this actually speaks to me more than some of the other OSRE podcasts that I've listened to. The only other one that I also enjoy quite a bit is Sanctum Sanctorum, but that's more, it's Appendix N reading in connection to DCC. But anyway, I really like it. So give it a listen. I think it's definitely worth it.
Yeah, let's get into Random Encounter.
Let's see if I can spoil something else.
Random Encounter, some emails, voicemails, some comments from social media. Got a few this week. Brett, go ahead.
All right. Jeff emailed us. I was part of a long-running game, 5+ years, where he played the same character in a kingdom. At some point during it, he became a duke, holding lands north of the kingdom that was just mountains. I had to decide what happened there, attend balls, and decide where roads would go. It ended up working out pretty well. I had to work alongside other players to help build this kingdom and defeat it from threats. At one point, the Elf Queen asked my character to marry his daughter to bring the two kingdoms closer. That is cool. I believe this is in reference, of course, to our politics and legal discussion we had. And politics can be a lot of fun, even if you have one character. Jeff's talking about a duke here. When I used to play 2nd edition, back in high school and stuff, I had a friend of mine had a character, Tubrick Dilligan III. He was a duke. He attained this title. He was the only character in our 3 PC group that wanted such a thing. But because of his political machinations and his fun there, we became like his royal guard entourage type of thing, and end up going on all sorts of little things to help keep the duchy alive. So it can be a lot of fun. And there was more than one offer of marriage to Mr. Tubrick Dilligan III. It was quite fun. So Jeff, thank you. That's cool. I love to hear that type of stuff.
Yeah,
Over
thanks.
to you, sir.
Thanks, Jeff. Kevin Keneally comments on G+ politics in role-playing games. Great episode, fellas. I especially enjoyed how punchy Sean was at the beginning. That's because I was ripped out of my mind, Kevin. No,
Had I been sitting next to him today, I think he would have punched me as soon as I started spoiling the movie. Anyway, carry on.
Anyways, you discuss factions within the party or how party members may belong to various factions. This is something that my group included in our Storm King's Thunder game. I don't know if we should read this because Storm King's Thunder is not that old. It's the most recent as of this recording.
Fuck it. Spoil it, man.
All right.
Let's do it.
If you're a Storm King's Thunder fan, word of caution, just forward, I don't know, 2 minutes.
So this is what I should have done before I racked the Star Wars movie. Okay.
You kind of should have, yeah. I started the game with the viewpoint of Laeral Silverhand and Elminster discussing how to tackle the giant problem. They decided to reform the Force Grey Company and change that group with seeking out rumors of giant activity in the north. Their character also included that Force Grey would be a group that the Lord's Alliance could ask for help. I also let my players know that their characters could be tied to any organization that they chose, but they had to keep in mind their affiliation to the Lord's Alliance. One party member chose to develop ties to the Zhentarim through an alias and has done an excellent job of coming up with reasons to be gone from Force Grey for periods of time to look into Zhentarim business. Another player decided to have his warlock patron be Asmodeus and to play up that patron bond via being Asmodeus' son. I've enjoyed pulling and tugging on that patron bond, DCC anyone, in order to make his life interesting and in setting up potential issues with the paladin in the group. The paladin in the group is a member of a knightly order and was sent to be the order's representative within Force Grey. The rest of the party gives him grief as he usually introduces the group as, I am Garrock, Knight of Samular, and Force Grey. All these faction affiliations have led to interesting role-playing opportunities and ways to take Storm King's Thunder off in unusual directions. This has helped us to keep the adventure fun for me as the DM as well. Thanks for the fantastic podcast.
Very cool. I think those types of things, we've talked about this before, I believe, on the mics about twisting a written adventure in order to include bits and pieces that are perhaps more fun or a different type of fun or something that keeps the group interested. And those types of things I like that stuff because it doesn't take a lot of twisting and turning to add a couple of those components to it. So that's good stuff, Kevin. Well done, sir. All right, next up, Forster Gary commented on G+ around politics. As always, great show, gentlemen. I'm co-GMing a campaign world set in the world of Greyhawk. As the campaign got started, the party could tell that things between two countries, the Horn Society and Ferundi, were getting touchy. The party was hired to find a kidnapped prince, which led them deep into the Horn Society, a country with a high population of orcs, goblins, and so forth. Well, in the midst of that country, the party found themselves caught in a surprise invasion by Ayuz, the country to the north, led by the half-demon named, of course, Ayuz. Caught between the demons and the deep blue sea, the party took refuge in the city of Critwall, further to the south, only to flee when the city's other refugees, to the free city of Greyhawk. Among all of this, the party has seen their share of dungeoneering, but the political happenings are always boiling in the background. At one point, I DM'd a one-shot adventure with a group, having them play key characters from Greyhawk's history, Mordenkainen, Valerius, Lanolin, and others, set by the legendary Circle of Eight to retrieve a gem from a ruined wizard's tower, which could be used to bribe a ruler of Paranland and influence him to budge from his vow of neutrality and side with what was left of Ferundi to hold off the hordes of Ayuz. After the one shot, we returned to our main party, which was at that point headed for Critwall. By doing the side one shot, the players, most of whom do not have much RPG experience, and only two of which really know anything at all about Greyhawk, were able to grok what was going on around them. By understanding the situation, they now know the quote-unquote stakes of the game. For example, they are now near the village of Port Greeley, up the coast from the city of Greyhawk, in my campaign at least, trying to rid the area of fishmen, i.e. deep ones, though only a couple players to figure this out. They have warned that Ayuz could make inroads just north of Greyhawk if the characters don't nullify the threat here. The thing is, the guy, the fisherman, Dagon, yes, that Dagon, doesn't care at all about Ayuz, but Ayuz wants to get in on the action at Port Greeley. To further complicate matters, Vecna, the supposedly dead and long-gone Lich of Legend, is making his way back and is pissed off at Ayuz. You can see where this is going, or maybe you can't, and maybe that's the point. So the party has had a direct effect on how things are going to shake out. And the other DM and I are just going to let things shake out. Who knows? Maybe Ayuz wins it all and the entire world is subjected to some dystopian rule by demons. Or maybe Vecna and his undead minions become totally dominant. Or maybe those who are fighting against Ayuz unite and drive the demons back to the abyss. Maybe Dagon gains power and invites his buddy Cthulhu over for a visit. Or maybe, sorry, this rambled on so long, but I wanted to share one of the examples of how rich a highly political campaign can be in just the top level stuff. And this is just top level stuff. The players have interacted with princes and paupers, merchants, guilds, sailors, priests, and bankers, and each interaction has had some influence in the world, however slight. The fun part is showing players down the road how their characters' actions have affected the city, the country, the entire world. We're having a lot of fun with this one. That's good stuff, man. Thank you, Forrest.
Yeah, Forrest, thanks a lot. As a game master, dungeon master, I would not be able to do that as well as you because I would get lost and forget how everything is tied together.
That is where I have now started to have to take more notes after a session. Like when it's still in my head, take notes and then review said notes just before the session to remember just what the hell it was that I had planned to do. That's the only way I can do it now.
You know, the biggest problem with like those complicated plots, twists, relationships is not maybe just that overall connections to everything else. I think to me, it would be the frequency of play or lack thereof. Like if I didn't play consistently, man, that stuff that'd be a problem.
If you got together once a month and tried to play that would be a little rough on you.
Yeah.
You'd be like, what? Who am I?
Well,
what's
and
going on?
Players aren't going to remember half of that if it's a month. Yeah.
Yeah, they can. Yeah, that could be rough. Okay.
Yeah. Michael Phillips comments on G+. One thing I tend to do with characters that are better at social stuff, so referring back to an episode where we do social encounters, says, is insert my intentions between my role-playing. I say X and Y. My intention is to inspire reaction Z. I would say that if a player explains the clever thing they are doing to sneak, they ought to get a bonus, just like if they present a strong argument to go with a diplomacy roll. I often play characters who can't sneak, but can certainly give other players a bonus on sneak checks because all eyes are on my distracting character, which is a good point.
I love that idea because if you are a gamer who is not comfortable, if you've listened to the Ed Greenwood interview that we put out there where Ed is talking about how everything that his players say is in character unless they specifically say something like player to GM or player to player. If that's not something that's comfortable, some players are more comfortable saying like, look, I want to say something along the lines of blah. And what I'm trying to do is get this guard to let us through the city and ignore the fact that we don't have quite enough toll. We're a little bit short or whatever the case is. I like that. I think that gives that explanation and so forth. Not everybody has thespian talents. Not everybody can explain everything like that. You've got different skill levels at the table from players. But as long as they can articulate what it is they're trying to accomplish, I think you're in a better spot. And I've given away many a bonus like that. Oh, that's what you're trying to do? Oh, yeah, I see that. And then off you go. I like it. It's good stuff. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thanks to everybody who's written in. Much appreciated. Michael, thank you so much. That wraps up Random Encounter. Let's get into the main topic.
Do it.
What are we talking about tonight, Brett?
Well, I want to talk a little bit about wilderness encounters, Sean. I spent the other weekend out in the nasty, wet cold with one of my boys, taking down tree stands and stuff that I should have taken down earlier, but just didn't get around to. So I went out, took care of that. And through our little muddling around, trying to get through creeks that had frozen, kind of not frozen, and so on, just trying to get to where I needed to go. I thought about it. I'm like, this is kind of it's not even that heavy duty of a wilderness, really. I mean, it's just a back 80 of a farm parcel that just being in the woods at that point was quite difficult and presented plenty of its own challenges. And I thought, you know what? It's a good thing to talk about, just how to make those. We've talked weather and a few other things, but I think we maybe dig a little bit deeper into the wilds outside the dungeon, outside the cities. What do you think?
Yeah, man, let's do that.
So, I mean, I just said it, right? So your wilderness environments, anything. I mean, I'm talking planetary in a space game, modern, whatever it is. Anytime you're out in the woods, outside of civilization, your weather issues and your gear and encumbrance. Those are some of the things that immediately pop to mind. Oh, yeah, I can have a snowstorm. Oh, that's hell. I can have difficulty with that, or heavy rain. or drought, blah, blah, blah. We talked about weather. And, the living gear stuff I talked about with you a number of episodes back, where we talked about ponies and henchmen and hirelings. How do you deal with that if you've got shitty wilderness areas to travel through? However, I think there's some more kind of, in my opinion, some cooler stuff that can come out of it. So I figured we'd dig into some of those pieces. Do you have anything you want to cover before I go too far?
Sounds fantastic.
That's what Sean sounds like.
I've never been juiced up more about wilderness encounters in all of my life.
You lie like I cover up my my spoiling of movies. That's good.
I'm not lying, man. This is my honest face.
If anybody can see it right now, it's not, doesn't look that honest. So, Sean, one of the things I like to do for fun when it comes to random encounters in the wild, right? Instead of just a wandering monster table, one of the things I like to do, and we talked a little bit about this when we talk random encounters or those types of things, is I've thought about over the years the number of bizarre things or interesting things I have stumbled upon. Either I've been looking for it, or because I was looking for something else, I came upon a thing in the woods, in a swamp, up in hill country, or whatever. It's really interesting what you can find and what that tells you about the area. And what when I've done this to players, what players will do with that information, assuming that it has something to do with the plot at hand, when in fact it just is something you've happened to found.
Maybe it's Brett playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah,
exactly. Brett's out there. He doesn't know what Pokemon he's going to come across.
Absolutely.
It's like going out there in the woods going, holy shit, it's a freaking Pikachu.
So this last one, my son AJ and I were out, and well, you shoot those.
Oh,
excuse me. Pikachu are good eating.
Yeah, good call.
Good call. We had to cross this annoying creek, and what had happened is that at one point, the water, because of all the rain we'd had here and a lot of the melt, there was a culvert that you could hop across this little creek. Well, that had gotten picked up and thrown down the creek a little bit it got wedged in. You couldn't cross it anymore. So you had to scoot down, wade across a little bit. I've got, knee-high boots on, so it's not a big deal. Carry my son across, get him over, drag the gear over. And AJ's like, what's that smell? I'm like, I don't know what that is. I look off to my left, and just buried behind this little chunk of tree, I look over the side of it. It's because the trees are all kind of built up in the creek bed where the water's trickling by. There's what's left of a deer carcass. There's hair and bones and bits of flesh and stuff just kind of scattered around. And there's obvious coyote prints all over the place. I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even see that there. So AJ looks at me, and being a game master's son, goes, boy, that'd make a great monster encounter, wouldn't it? I'm like, yes, it would, son. Write that one down. But those, I have found bones of various animals. I found at one time I was out along a riverside, I found 3 snapping turtle skeletons or forms of different pieces of them. I've got chunks of the shell and the skulls and the leg bones that I collected. I have found a number of deer skulls, bucks and does. You find the regular tracks and so forth. And I was walking through the woods one time. I found a dead possum. No idea why it died. The body was just there, frozen in the snow. And I've seen other dead animals and signs of that. And those types of things, it tells you a lot. As a hunter, you go through there. Anybody who spends time in the woods, you go through, oh, wow, there's a dead deer. There's canine tracks all over. I know there's coyotes here. I've seen them before. I bet it's a roadkill. You can see where they drug it off the side of the road. Oh, this is where it came down, and so on. And then you take that and extrapolate that to, well, you've been sent out to find out what's been killing the cattle or whatever for the village, or even if you're on a strange planet, you don't quite know what it is, and you find the body of a thing, eaten, fur, scales, whatever, torn off of it in this creek bed. What do your players do with that? What do the characters do with that? That's a thing that can cause them to want to dig into the area more. What did it? Oh my God, is it dangerous? Was it just a regular carnivore or herbivore, predator prey thing? Or was this something a little more than that? Those things become interesting, or at least they have when I brought them up before. The other things I found lost stuff. I found a four-wheeler, a fully operating four-wheeler that some kid was driving around, lost it because it ran out of gas, and he had his deer gutted and hanging on the back of it. He had it all tied up. The only thing he didn't leave there was his gun, but his backpack, the deer, the four-wheeler, all of the extra clothes and his lunch from the day before was all sitting there in the middle of the woods. There was nothing around for like 4 miles in any direction. And my dad and like, what the hell? So that was interesting. Eventually we found out who it was and brought him to it and got it out of there. I have found backpacks, just stuff apart from usual garbage and detritus that people leave behind, bottles and cans and shit like that. I've found some kind of cool things. Gun parts. Don't know how or why. Old buildings. I've gone through the woods or swamps or whatever, and you come somewhere and there was a farm there at one point, or somebody had built something and it's just dilapidated and fallen down, and that's where the raccoons are living. So those types of things pop out. So
my wife would say that's serial killer house.
Could be
serial killer. That's where they live. Rural Wisconsin, dilapidated houses in the middle of nowhere with like windows cracked, full of standing, structure. But, that's where the hills have eyes people live. Yep. Just so you know.
Okay. Well, it means I should probably stop going in those houses then. Huh?
Well,
bad for my health.
But maybe you are.
I see. Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I'm bad enough to spoil movies, so God knows what else I'm capable of. Anyway, so again, this is kind of harkening back again to our discussion about random encounters, but those types of things are not necessarily common, but they show up quite often, especially when you're not that far from civilization. You get 5-10 miles into whatever bit of woods or wilderness you are away from civilization. People still have been through here and they leave their tracks of some kind. And it can be more, than the goblins left a campfire. You find a goblin war axe leaning up against a tree. Someone forgot it, left it, packed up, left in a hurry. Does that war axe tell you the same story that perhaps a burned out campfire would, or whatever the case is? So again, I think it adds more color, and it can, how do I do this? It tells you more about what's around you, what's in the environment, or who comes through often or not. You find a backpack or that four-wheeler, as I said, in the woods. The deer hadn't been dead that long. It was clearly out of gas. I tried to start it. Okay. It can't be here that long. It's not overgrown. It hasn't snowed yet, so there's nothing hanging on it. It's fairly recent. What happened? That's kind of a Blair Witchy type thing. Almost, you find just stuff in the woods. Where the people.
Here's the problem with that stuff, though, Brett. The player characters will like glob onto those things, and they won't let go.
That's because you go back to side quest episode and you start hooking side quests onto that shit if you need to. If they absolutely refuse to let go of the fact that there's a four-wheeler in the woods and they're hunting a serial killer, and the FBI agents want to see what's going on with it, have them find the old man and young kid, as my father and I did, who are looking in the swamp trying to find out where the hell they lost it. Oh. And then that old man and kid have more data or information for them.
Oh,
yeah.
That's why, Brett, you're so much better DM than I am.
Don't do that. I know you're lying to me.
Brett is a better DM than me. Don't let him bullshit you. Obviously, just listen to this guy. Shitting gold over there.
Somebody's gonna actually play a game with him one day, and they're gonna go, "What the fuck was Sean talking about?" That guy's all like, "Screw you, you're dead. Aha, you're dead. Your character's dead. Your mom's dead."
Dude, the Avalon actual play, man. Come on, man. You're a star.
All right, stop that. Anyway, so when you run wilderness stuff, does that occur to you, or is that something that you use in your encounters in the wild?
Yes. Yes. I do a lot of modules, so I think it depends on the module. If I did something random, I would try to incorporate some of that. But I mean, one of the Rise of the Rune Lords modules is bad stuff's happening, and it's not necessarily wilderness, but you get into some of the things that you mentioned, like, you go down to kind of a murder scene, and you're CSI in it, and you're like, oh, what's going on here? Oh, something was dragged off, and you can track it, if you've got a decent tracker or whatever. So some of that's incorporated into some of the good pre-written modules and adventures, for sure.
I know some folks with some of the pre-written stuff that I've looked at, when I've run them, my players will come through and they'll miss something. And this is and I know some people don't always like this, or, where you're trying to, it's the quantum ogre concept of, hey, you have to get them in a certain place. But if you really want them to, move somewhere or whatever, there is a tool that you have in your toolbox as a game master. And that is, one of those random things they find. You can warn them of the fact that they have made enemies with the goblin tribe, right? There's nothing in the written adventure that says you've done this. They have ignored every other sign, but waking up and finding that there's a goblin arrow stuck in a tree over where you were sleeping, or in the middle of the night, some goblin counted coup on you and left a raccoon skull on your bedroll. Excuse me. Or walking again, you see a war club, or you're in the woods on some crazy planet in Star Wars and you see something. You're like, okay, I don't like this. What is that? It's just Minox on the, Minox chewing on the power cables. And then something happens. Like, okay, this is weird. I don't want to spoil that movie because people may not have seen it.
You're talking about The Empire Strikes Back? I can't even believe you referenced that. And something like the Minoc. That's good.
See?
Brett, I'm telling you, man. I don't know.
I'm picking it up. But one of the pieces where I'm getting at is those random things. You can clue the hell out of it from a clue dropping perspective. When you're going through, if your characters are lost, they're trying to figure something out, they don't know quite where they are, and they come upon a cow skeleton. Okay, cows only wander probably a certain distance. Well, okay, how dead is it? Well, maybe there's a farm nearby. There's lots of things that they can infer from finding a backpack, finding a dead deer, finding, gun parts. I found at one point I found a gun sight. For whatever reason, somebody lost a peep sight off the back of a rifle, happened to step on it and found it. So when you find those things, that tells you something about who or what frequents the area, which can lead you to say, oh, we are looking for people that live here, and we've been told they use stone axes. I just found a broken hafted stone axe. I think I might be getting close. Picking that out of my pocket. The other thing, just to leave the clues and just random shit aside, is the wilderness time for me, to help kind of spice things up, is that when the characters are making camp, I try to encourage the PC to PC conversations. When you were running D&D for Kevin, Jim, Austin, and I, my halfling, I was the cook. I decided I'm the cook. So every time we sat down, my player, I tried to say, I whipped something up. I've got Grandma Gertrude's famous herbal mushroom chicken recipe.
Yep.
I encourage the hell of that stuff because it's fun. And then the other players, they all got into it. Kevin and Jimmy and Jim, I should say, and Austin, they came to count on that. I assume you're cooking. Yeah, absolutely cooking. You're not making chicken. Oh, I got to make the chicken. The chicken's what you got to have. You're on a journey. It's got, oh, Jesus. No, Jesus, Wardy. I'm sick of the chicken. But that became a thing. One of my favorite wilderness player on player actions was Tabby was playing a druid. She likes playing druids. And my buddy Lenny's playing this paladin who's a complete insufferable ass. He just has no social skills. He's really lawful good. He's really devoted to his god, but he's just a social moron. And he's pissed off the druid constantly by insulting her. He doesn't realize he's insulting her, but he's insulting her elvish heritage and her druidical faith as being lesser and weak. So he looks at her and goes, "Druid, where shall I sleep tonight?" Because he's never been in the woods before. She goes, "Right there, that lovely depression by that log and the beautiful lush moss. That'll be perfect. You'll fit there perfectly." Well, she knows damn well that that's where the dew and the frost collects, and he would wake up soaking wet. So I'm like, oh, okay. I look at Tabby, go, "Why are you doing that?" She goes, "Because he's an ass. I'm going to put him where," similar to what we were just talking about above, right? Where she told me her intention. She went through and said, "This is what I want to do, and here's the result I'm trying to get." So Lenny looked at me and goes, "That makes sense. My guy's kind of an ass." So down he goes, takes a nap. He wakes up, his bedroll is soaked. He's shivering cold. He slept in, his light armor because he's a paladin and he's super tough. And he wakes up at a minus whatever because he didn't get any sleep. I got to use my armor check penalties, the lack of sleep penalties, all that fun stuff. The other thing that's always fun is when you talk about being outside, true wilderness, be it a desert, Arctic, swamp, whatever, is being alone. Even if it's you and 5 of your companions, you're fucking alone. If you're far enough out, you're off the road, you're in the mountains. Okay, who takes the first watch? That becomes a thing that people give a shit about because they're thinking, okay, it's going to be pitch dark. Do you have a camp? Do you not have a camp? well, what would happen if we did have a fire? Exactly. The cricket.
All alone, man. What's out there, man? There's always something ruffling around. And then you don't hear anything.
You just said, I love doing that because sounds are super fucking deceptive. I have stood 2 hills away from my dad on the base of a hill. My dad and I got separated. My walkie-talkie's not working because I'm in a goddamn swamp and it's just not working right because technology doesn't always function in the wild. I'm like, God damn it, where is he? So I scream, Dad. They hear him yell. I'm like, oh, there he's over there. I walked in the complete opposite direction of where he was because the way things echoed. So you got a bunch of city kids in the woods. They're adventuring now, no matter what the landscape, be they sci-fi people or fantasy or whatever. And that night sets in. The owls start hooting, the rustling in the grass. All the night predators and prey are out. Amp that shit up, right?
Man, I remember times, I know this is getting off the beaten path, but it does touch on what you're saying a little bit. So when we go and do, we do exercises in the military, man.
You do them at night too.
You do them at night. And as a matter of fact, there's plenty of times where you have to do them at night because that's kind of the deal. You don't, when combat breaks out, it's not 8 to 5, right? So.
Yeah, for some reason, the enemy does not engage only during normal business hours.
Silly like that. And neither do we, right? We don't stop.
Exactly.
But, you got to practice light discipline. So what happens is, there's no lights. You're driving in the dark, literally. It's called blackout drive. There's literally like a little peephole of a light. And you would be surprised at how much area that actually lights up. Cigarettes in the dark, you smoke, you got to hide your cigarette cherry, the lit end, because you could see that from miles away. Literally. It's
goofy, but until you've encountered that, until you've experienced it like you're talking about, I have sat on the end of one cornfield, 120 acres away, I saw a flashlight.
Yeah.
Just a handheld flashlight, because it's pitch fucking dark.
Right.
You can see it flickering.
But I remember, so you got to go to, you got to do your business. You got to go do a number 2, right? Because a number 1, you just kind of walk off a few feet away, 20 feet away, 30 feet, do your thing. Number 2, though, you got to go find a tree and find somewhere nice.
There's a process involved in that.
Nice and private. There is. There is. But the thing is some guys I would know, you'd be like, God damn, you were gone for like an hour or 2 hours. Like, where the hell have you been? And guys would go out and they'd get turned around and they would walk in the complete opposite direction of where they were supposed to come back to. So literally they're wandering around a firing point trying to find the track vehicle or their foxhole and holy shit, I went in the wrong place and then I ended up on the wrong end of the firing point. And when you're in artillery, you got a pretty big span between the guns and everything. So it's not unusual if you go walking. And then everything's in camo, right? You have netting up.
Which so you're trying to hide.
It's not,
like you're trying not to be seen.
So the whole point of light discipline and going around in the dark is not to be seen and be all quiet. So when you go out and take a dump and then you got to come back, the chances are you might not find what you're looking for.
There is a Les Stroud, the guy who does Survivor Man, told a story one time about a guy who went out to the outhouse at a deer camp. He went out to his outhouse, walked out, and basically veered a little too far right. And he was discovered 2 days later. He was still alive, but he wandered out too far in the dark with no flashlight, and he walked off and just kept going and going and going and got turned around. So we're talking about getting lost. An interesting thing about being alone and being lost. I have been lost in the woods twice. It is fucking terrifying. I remember being there and getting turned around and going, I have no idea where I am. I got a GPS unit with a walkie-talkie on it. I can't raise my dad or my buddy. I can't get anybody because technology doesn't always work in the wild, as I said. Sometimes you don't have a cell phone signal. Sometimes the shit doesn't work. Like, fuck. I look down. I have no compass. Where's my fucking compass? Oh, yeah, it's on my other jacket. I swapped jackets. I didn't bring my compass. Where's my spare compass? Oh, that's in the backpack I left because I didn't want to bring it with me. You dumb shit. That was fucking miserable. My my father got lost once. And our buddy Albert cut his track. He said, cut Ron's track. My dad's Ron, of course. And Albert says, I'm following your old man. And Albert's shorter than my father and I. We're about 6'3", 6'4". And he said, I could tell your dad was starting to panic. He said, because I had to jump between footsteps because I was able to put my boots in his boot tracks. He said, after a while, I couldn't do that anymore because my legs are too short. And then if he couldn't knock it down, that's when your dad would walk around it. Otherwise, he just knocked the tree over. He would come up on a dead stump and destroy it because he was on his way east because that's where the road was. So where I'm getting at is the other fun piece is that if you've ever encountered anybody who's been lost, they're in a panic, right? So that's another fun, even if you will, random encounter. I have bumped into guys in the woods before who don't know where they are. And they are incredibly grateful when you help them out. If it were a D&D adventure, I'd been heaped with gold and given a lifetime stay at the inn for saving this individual. But it happens. People get lost. And when we talked about being alone, it's really, really fucking freaky. And that's not even like lost in a place with grizzly bears or something horrible like bugbears and goblins and things that want to eat you, right?
Well, the only thing with role-playing games, though, is that it's all kind of hand-waved. And I think that if you go through it as an actual person, you can kind of relate, right? You and I, Brett, have had our experiences. But, like, you're heroes, so you're the ranger, you're the druid. This stuff is like the back of your hand. This is kind of your home turf. This is like your backyard. So it's hard to capture some of that feel and some of that, desperation and, sudden emptiness or just like foreboding, right? So you come across all the animal skulls and stuff, which I think is fine. Hey, something's going to be coming around because there's a lot of dead skeletons around here and I wonder what's going on. And now you feel the ground tremble. Now it's going to rear its ugly head.
Yeah. Now the tension ratchets.
Yeah.
Now the other piece to do there is we hinted at this before, and let me make sure I quote the proper listener here. Michael Phillips. When Michael's talking about, referencing what he's trying to accomplish, the other thing I like to do is when you have somebody who's taken the time to make a ranger, a druid, an outdoor person of some sort, whatever their character class is, a barbarian, look at them and say, as a barbarian, you would know X, or maybe you would know Y, or whatever the case is. Look at those people and give them an opportunity through role playing to do. We've talked about this before, where they look at you, they can ask you, hey, I'm looking for a tree. That's it. I'm sick of being lost. I find the tallest tree and I climb to the top of it. And I want to see where we're at. You can say, yes, there's a tree, or no, there's not, or whatever. Or they ask you, is there a tree?
Yes.
Regardless of how
and it's fallen over. Yeah. Yes. And it's lying on the ground. Fuck.
You bastard.
Yeah.
But it's a great opportunity to let those character classes or personas that really love that shit to shine.
Yes.
I made a big white hunter one time in Great White Hunter was his whole shtick in a Call of Cthulhu game. And we finally get to Africa and India and a few other places. And I got to Lenny was game mastering and he let me kind of, oh yes, I was here before in the Congo and I encountered this, and this. He allowed me, because of that background, to pull on some things I knew from a real world perspective existed at that time. Oh yes, I bagged 15 tigers in India, type of thing. So it's a great opportunity to give those characters something to really do. And I think that's where, honestly, truth be told, that's where I started spending more time in the wilderness, was because I love playing rangers. They're fun. I loved Aragorn. I like hunting. I love that being outside type of stuff.
Well, Brett,
we finally get in the woods.
In all fairness, though, Brett,
yeah,
you are a ranger.
Well,
I mean, you got to go into the town every once in a while and do funky stuff and get some money and gold. But yeah, you end up going out. I mean,
other than that, I prefer to be out there. Yeah,
sitting in tree stands and blinds and getting all camoed up. And
I'm weak compared to some of the hunters I know. Anyhow. But by playing those characters and not having that moment to shine and being, finally, I'm in the woods. I look around for animal tracks and I love to kill a deer and bring it back to camp. When I'm a young kid playing that ranger, finally, well, there's no deer. That's not the point. We're just going from here to the dungeon. Boo. All right. So I'm a ranger in the dungeon. I'm a druid in the dungeon. Oh, hopefully there's some lichen I can make grow up and grab you. When you finally get to the wilderness, that's that opportunity for those characters to shine, really, really shine. The barbarian who grew up in that area, or the person who's from this planet who was a farmer here before he joined the Resistance, can come to this new planet and say, hey, this reminds me of this farm back on Xeno 7. And on Xeno 7, we used to do this. So I'm willing to bet that over the next rise, you're going to find, a water trough or something because we're really thirsty. Those are great opportunities for characters to do that stuff. So Sean, I know you like penalizing people, so you like this bit.
I like challenging players, Brad. I don't know, like penalizing seems so negative. It has such a negative connotation to it. I really kind of, I borderline offends me, Brett.
So I'll tell you what, to challenge them appropriately via the rules, if you want to go all mechanics on them and not just talky hand wavy, you have terrain bonuses. You have terrain penalties. Think about the creatures that live there. You've got a troll or 2 or 3 trolls that live in the swamp. I designed an adventure one time, and patrons of the show who were patrons earlier on got a copy of my one adventure I wrote in Irule's Tower. Within there are a set of goblins that live in the swamp and trolls that live there as well. I did my best to try to give those creatures a little something extra. How do they utilize their environment? I decided trolls can't drown, so trolls would lurk in really deep swamp pools, and then they would lash out and grab ponies and do things, set up ambushes that way. The swampers, the goblins that live there, had different skills and things that they could pull off because that's where they lived, giving them bonuses, to deal with stuff. And it's also a good opportunity, even things as simple as your wilderness survival, your tracking, all those skill checks that people dump points into. That's another opportunity for those players that want to role play to a point, but love to have their skill checks back up what it is they're doing. It's that chance for them to shine. And for those who don't have those outdoorsy skills, to be able to say, well, I've got a really good, knowledge, history. Do I know anything of the lands in this area? Okay, sure. You might know something that there used to be a great horde of, Xenos creatures had invaded this planet and were driven off by the Emperor back in whatever. Again, it's more of an opportunity to pull across all the different breadth and depth of the character sheet. Make sense?
It does, yeah. And as a matter of fact, there should be an episode or an example of how we cover maybe encounters for certain classes. Because you're right. How do you as a game master cater to specific? I mean, if you're playing a class game,
well, even character types.
Character
people,
type, yes.
People who like a thing.
Right.
People who like outdoors character, dungeon character, whatever. Yeah,
right.
No, that's a good idea. I like that.
And it could be a series of now we're going to cover X or Y. And then even as, one thing we've toyed around with, and I'm going off the beaten path here, but one thing is we don't cater to the player, right? We always talk about game master, but how do we talk about players and becoming better players? So in that same token, we could say, all right, well, we're going to do an episode on the range, like we're doing now, ranger, druid, outdoorsy type character types. How do we throw things in front of them that makes them shine? And then, but on the same token, how do you play a ranger or a druid, and what things to keep in mind when you're playing those characters? Because one thing I think, Brad, is not that, everybody that listens to us currently knows all these things, right? So for them as players, it's kind of like, duh, right? So, but every once in a while, we may get one person that listens to the show that's maybe never played a wizard, never played a ranger. So they're like, okay, well, I'm going to play. Somebody says, hey, you play a ranger. It's like Aragorn. And they go, oh, okay. And they get that, but they don't know really what to do. Like, what do I do as a ranger?
Yeah, that's interesting too, because, what I'm talking about here, I'm trying to very swiftly say, hey, here's stuff I've seen in the woods and swamps and places I've wandered about. Is that in your story, light discipline and all that stuff from your military time? That's good stuff, because not everybody has that. I've never been in the military. I've not had to deal with that. That's good info. You can't, and the other piece I could go with it too is like, how do you research? Is there any reading you could do outside the course material in order to determine what you need to find? Good. I like that idea. We'll have to kick that into the old list, I think.
Hey, we'll just steal the pin from Misdirected Mark, guys.
Yeah.
Borrow a pin and we'll stick it in this.
Yeah, well, I'll steal a pin off of one of the index cards that I got from Phil a while back. So
there you go.
I'll take a misdirected mark index pin with a borrowed index card with a borrowed misdirected mark index pin, and I'll pin it to my
an American-made index card because I don't think Europeans have them.
No, they don't. Well, not since Phil cornered the market on them.
Right. It's that bastard Vecchione.
It's that guy, I tell you. All right, so that's our bit on wilderness stuff. Obviously, as always, Sean and I do our best to touch and scratch the topic, but I'm positive there's more to it. So if you guys want to hear more, or if you've got better ideas or ways you've done it, as you heard earlier today, our listeners are great. All of y'all are great at getting us your ideas and how you've done things before. Keep it coming, and let us know how you do wilderness encounters and settings and all that good stuff.
Yeah, let's
die roll, man.
Yeah, let us know. Let us know if you've come up with an interesting, intriguing wilderness encounter. Because sometimes I think they can be very, and this is Sean speaking, mine are probably pretty damn bland. Like, hey, you got to find a place to camp, or you find a glade. It's great. It's off the road or whatever, a few hundred feet, and it's right on the border of the forest. Oh, you set up a watch, and for me, it's very blah.
Formulaic.
Yeah, but if you've come up with something interesting that has to do with a wilderness encounter, Brett and I would be all ears for that.
Absolutely.
All right, die roll.
Die roll time.
Die roll. 2 to 4 miscellaneous points of gaming and geekery we want to bring to you. Could be even inspiration.
Could be.
Go ahead, Brett.
All right, so I've got one. I have the Book of the Tarrasque. This is John Arcadian from Encoded Designs and Gnome Stew fame. Encoded Designs is putting the sucker out. I had it was awesome. It was at QCC last year, as I've said before on the show. Tom Flanagan from Knights of the Night and I had a chance to get together, and we sat down. I was walking through QCC, and Arcadian goes, Brett, what are you doing right now? I said, nothing. He said, you want to fight a Tarrasque? I said, goddamn right, I want to fight a Tarrasque. So I sat down, and I grabbed Tom, and we fought a Tarrasque. We won. It was crazy hard. But I got because I helped kind of play test some of the different bits and pieces of what he was up to. John said, hey, Brett, this thing's going out. He gave me a little preview copy of what's going on. And I will tell you, excuse me, right now, it's coming out February 1st. It's really, really freaking cool. John has a map of the inside of the Tarrasque, with different things that happen if you, like when you get swallowed whole, if you're in its stomach, near its heart, various different components. The art looks great. Everything in it, how to use the Tarrasque. He's played it a bunch, fighting the Tarrasque and so forth. And, if you like, hey, people have beat the Tarrasque like this before, says John, here's what happens if they do that. Oh, you want to stick a bag of holding in a portable hole? Here's what happened. Or here's this other thing. He has a ton of great stuff. They got Ed Greenwood to do the intro to the thing, which is really cool. I'll tell you, it's just cool. The Tarrasque is one of those monsters. Sean, have you ever used the Tarrasque?
I have not. I don't think I have. No.
I never did because I wasn't sure how to frack to use it, really. I read it and went, oh my God, that thing's just death. Holy cow. It's just mindless, horrible killing machine. And it's been a monster I've never used. But after playing with John, and I'll tell you, after perusing the overview he gave me, I want to run a goddamn Tarrasque game. It looks really cool. It's a great, if nothing else from a con perspective, it is a great con game to sit down and fight the Tarrasque. And I'm really impressed with what John and the team have put together for this thing. It's really, really cool. And I'm not just saying that because we're friends with those guys, but it's really cool. And we've got a link in the show notes to the Encoded Design page where the cool stuff is out there. It's got the advice, the history, the resources, the adventure itself. February 1st, it'll land. Check it out. It's definitely going to be.
What is the page count on that, Brett? Did he list the page count?
Oh, let me see. I do not know if he listed.
I'm just curious, like how. I mean, is it like a 30 pager, 96 pager? I don't know.
You know what? Let me check.
It's not a big deal. We don't have to cover it right now.
You know what? I'm going to see if I can find out what I have.
All right, you look that up.
I'll look that up. You do your bit.
All right. But yeah, go ahead and make sure you check that out from John and the folks at Encoded.
Do it!
All right, so
Just do it!
Holy cow, that's the whole routine.
That's the whole routine. That's everything.
Yeah, that's the whole, like I get hit there and Shallowmouth goes off.
You're looking at almost 80 pages, by the way.
Yeah, see, that's a thick book on a creature.
It is. And he's got like big, like cut, like how you can make like a Tarrasque. He's got like big printed. It's just the images, the pictures in there.
I want the bumpers. I want the bumper sticker that says "Big Tarrasque Hunter," like big game hunter, but big Tarrasque Hunter.
It is so cool. It's gonna be awesome. I hope people grab it because it's really cool. Anyway, carry on.
Visual guide to 5e character classes as seen on Reddit. There's an image that it looks like a mind map where all the classes are kind of related to each other. So they've got all the classes of 5e. I thought it was kind of cool. It's a graphic. Check it out. Link in the show notes. I already mentioned Hobbs and Friends podcast. Check that out. Covering the OSR. And then we've got a few from listeners. You want to go ahead, Brett?
Yeah, Bruce Cunnington, one of our listeners overseas at the UK. He is not the Goblin's henchman.
No, he's not.
No, he's not. But Bruce Cunnington is doing some things for charity, some good stuff for charity. He's got prizes for a special effect charity draw. Got links in the show notes there. You can donate as little as £1. That's British pounds, of course, for a chance to win. All prizes shipped internationally at his expense. 100% of the money goes to excellent charity Special Effect. www.specialeffect.org.uk. Take a look. Links in the show notes. Bruce is a great listener. He's been just super supportive of us in the past. So, Bruce, thank you for drawing this to our attention. And hopefully, folks here stateside and anywhere else listening to us will give you a look.
Kevin Lovecraft, he supplied a 1927 map revealing hideouts of Chicago gangsters. So if you're playing a mobster era, 1920s, 30s, and you want a map, there's got a link in the show notes for a reference that. Thanks, Kevin Lovecraft. Hey, thanks, Kevin Lovecraft.
Nice.
That should be his voice, Kevin Lovecraft. Hey, he's like DJ Kevin Lovecraft.
The other one we have is a Princess Bride RPG is coming from Toy Vault using the Fudge system. We've got a link in the show notes. And the final one, I threw this up here just at the tail end, was Tim Shorts, listener and friend of the show, pointed out that there's a beginner's guide to body snatching out there.
Well, of course there is.
Of course there is.
Yeah. Forwarded by Brett B.
Yeah, Brett B. and Sean Kelly.
Not me, dude.
We're also known as Burke and Hare back in the day. Anybody who knows what that is a smart person. Anyhow, so yes, Beginner's Guide to Body Snatching. Got a link in the show notes. Again, I read that and I'm like, this is just, it's perfect. It's perfect gamer fuel. So good stuff.
Thanks everybody for supplying die rolls. We appreciate it. And so does everybody else that checks them out. Speaking of checking it out, visit GameholeCon.com, which is one of our partners, sponsors, people we endorse, whatever disclaimer we need to put in there for the FCC.
We love these people.
Yes. Gaming convention, in case you haven't listened to the last, 40 episodes. Yeah. It's a gaming convention in Madison, Wisconsin every November. It's the first weekend in November. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a blast. Lots of different guests, lots of different events. We're going to be there. We'll be sponsoring the Keg on Saturday night.
We'll have games under our banner, the whole bit again.
Playing some Happy Salmon on Saturday night. Happy Salmon.
I almost bought a copy of that game when I was up in Wausau.
I'll let you borrow it, man.
Oh, awesome.
I bet your kids would love that shit.
I probably would.
Get them camping, playing Happy Salmon in the middle of the woods, and people like screaming like, what the hell's going on over there? Hey, we're just playing Happy Salmon.
It's fine. No, we're not a cult, I swear. Don't mind the dead deer.
Fist bump, high five. What in the hell are those people doing over there? Anyways, if you can make it, we would love to see you. Love to see you. Brett and I give hugs, big hugs. So,
absolutely.
Free hugs.
All the time.
Anyways, next week, Brett, we know what's on the docket for next week.
I got a couple different things I want to bounce off of Sean. One of them is kind of a basic. Well, you know what? I'm going to keep it a secret for now because I want to talk to Sean before I go shoot my mouth off. So we'll see what we come up with.
When you say bouncing it off of me, Brett, is that a bludgeoning weapon or piercing? Just want to clarify.
Well, bouncing is bludgeoning. Piercing doesn't bounce.
Well, true, but I want to make sure I'm on the same page.
Yeah, it's bludgeoning.
Okay.
Bludgeoning.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, hey, that's it for this week in Gaming MBS. I'm one of your hosts, Sean.
And I'm Brett. Good night and good game, all.
This episode brought to you with the help from the following patrons: Christian Sexy Voice Serrano, Kevin Lovecraft, Joe Swick, Brett's Biggest Fan, Jeff Rodemacher, Forrest DeGary, Mark Anthony Benedetti, Bruce Cunnington, Eric Jeppesen, Andy Hall, Sean Nicholson, Tim Jensen, Chris Steele, Knights of the Night Crew, Palladian, Jason Blakelock, Remy Bilodeau, Jason Hobbs, Mirko Froelich, Wayne, Lumrunner Humphrey, James Carpio, Not Caprio, Pure Mongrel, Lord Tentacle, Corey Johnston, Eric Tankar, Brandon Barnes, Mark Tasaka, Brett Pazinski, Tim Shorts, Eileen Barnes, Chad Knight, Dan LaValle, C.W. Mellencamp, Nicholas Abruzzo, Victor Wyatt, Tony the Butcher Baker, Craig Huber, Eli Kurtz, The Lost Sailor, Graham Miner, Todd McGowan, Roger Braslett, Misdirected Mark Productions, Old School DM Jason, Christopher Gray, Tabletop Game Talk Podcast, Stephen Dragon Spawn. For the cost of a coffee shop coffee, you can support the show for an entire month. Consider visiting gamingbs.com/Patreon. That's Patreon. Thank you to all the patrons, and thank you for listening. This has been a Litterbox Studio production.